Hi guys, so the Makita Rail Saw, I already liked it, but now that I've figured out what the issues were, I like it even more. Hi everyone, I just wanted to do a really quick, to the point follow-up about this Makita 36 volt rail saw. I wanted to do it because I said some negative things about this saw in the review. Those things were true, and the most important one for me was the fact that the blade that came with this saw was deflecting when I was trying to do a challenging cut. Perfect results in plywood, but when I tried to cut through the end of a laminated coffee table that I'm building, which looked like it shouldn't be too much of a challenge based on what I've seen people do with rail saws, it cut through it, but it did not do a good job. The blade was deflecting out to the side, causing burning on the end and a very imprecise cut, and I wasn't happy with it. You know, I could do the cut in several passes, but that wasn't satisfying to me. I thought this saw should be capable of more. Now, a couple of people in the comments suggested that by using clamps I could resolve that problem, which was a fair enough suggestion, especially given that in the video you could see the coffee table moving slightly when I pushed the saw along it, but the track itself wasn't moving along the surface of the wood. But anyway, I did clamp it up. I clamped it down to the table, clamped the coffee table down to the table that it was sitting on, and I used the tool shed clamps that came with, or that I bought, to clamp the Makita rail down. They worked perfectly, and it was all rock solid. And I did another cut, but it was the same thing. Unfortunately, I just got the same result. The blade was deflecting out, causing burning, and giving a messy, imprecise cut. So that was a problem, and I was still left thinking, okay, so what's the issue? I did suspect it was the blade, so I went looking. What I'll do first of all, come in closer. So I've taken the batteries out, which is always the best thing to do when you're going to be touching the blade. The Allen key is just sitting down here under the handle. Now, do you remember how I couldn't figure out what that thing was for? Well, shortly after uploading the video, I figured it out. Murphy's Law, they call that. So that creates a little hole there that you can lower the blade down to, and then release the pin, and it will stick into that hole, thus having the blade in just the right position to remove it. So then you use that lever there to hold the blade still and undo it. So that's a handy feature, and I'm glad it has that, because I was a little disappointed that I thought it didn't. Piece of cake. Right, now this is a Makita Efficut blade, 165 millimeters with 56 teeth, and it's a thin kerf blade. It is 1.45 millimeters thin, and look, the first thing I noticed about it is, gosh, this is thin, and it flexes so easily. I can feel that. Bend it easily with my hands. I've never been able to do that with a circular saw blade. I suspected this was the problem, because I didn't think a Makita would be that bad, and that's really why I'm redoing this look at this blade, because I felt bad, because I thought, no, I expected more of that. I do like Makita tools. I'm surprised that it's performing so badly, but that's got to be the issue. And based on something I just saw online as well, which I'll now share with you, I believe it is. So I'm at the Mitre 10 website, where I have seen this very blade for sale. Makita Efficut saw blade, 165 mils, 56 teeth. There is one review, and it is a negative one. It's, of course, far more likely that people will leave a review if they have a strong opinion. So, you know, bear that in mind. But nonetheless, let's have a look at what it says. The review is from a fellow named Roger, and according to Roger, this is the title of his review, not worth it. He says, bought this to use with Stanley Fatmax battery circular saw, found that it was quite flexible, which meant that the blade would bend when doing a rip cut and would often give angled rip cuts, also gave bad splintered edges, which look horrible. Not recommended for joinery. or anything where precision is required. Roger is describing my experience. As you saw, that's exactly what happened to me. However, I noticed he said the word joinery, and what that might indicate is that he's not talking about cutting through thin panels where it performs brilliantly, but about kitchen joinery, which may involve potentially thicker pieces of wood, maybe even bench tops, maybe even something about as thick as what I've got here, where this very thing would happen. So yeah, it's nice to feel validated. Now I do actually notice that at the Toolshed website, where you can buy this saw, as I did, the battery version comes with this saw, and I've seen some talk online about how the effort cut blades are really good for battery powered saws because the fact that they're so thin means that the saw is doing less work, thus prolonging the battery life, and that will probably explain why the battery saw comes shipped with this blade. But I see also at the Toolshed website, when you buy the corded version of the saw, it comes with a different blade. I'll show you what that blade looks like because I'm going to get one. It is a Makita saw blade, a TCT 165mm, 48 teeth, B07353 blade, and that has a thickness of 2.2mm. Now that is substantially thicker. I have looked around online at other people using the battery version of the saw, just as I have, and I see that they're also using that blade. So that's what I'm going to do as well. I'll give it a go because I think that will resolve my problems. I like it when packages arrive. So, the new blade is here. Let's check it out. Now, that's something I did wonder. And maybe this is just a thing with Makita blades generally when it comes to blades that are meant for plunge saws, battery saws, I don't know. But the teeth are, if not exactly flush, they're very close to flush against the surface of the blade itself. No, they're not quite flush, but very close to. And that's the case here. Like you can tell that there's barely a ridge caused by the teeth. What this means, because the blade sits flat against that plate there, and if the teeth aren't sticking out, and they're not really, then in theory this shouldn't cut any further into the rubber strip than the previous blade did. It won't matter if it does, it just means that that'll be the new size of the rubber strip, because I imagine that this blade is one that I would want to use all the time. But if it does, it won't be very much at all. Okay. Let's put the batteries in here and give it a whirl. Well, that is exactly what I was hoping would happen. That is a nice, clean cut. No signs of deflection. I am pleased. I was, and the reason I gave this saw a second chance doing this with a different blade is that I really did expect the saw to perform well, and I was kind of disappointed at the initial result. So that is very good to see. Very good to see indeed. Okay, so let's have a quick gander. Okay, so that's a nice right angle all the way across, yeah. Well, okay, look, I've changed my assessment of the saw. I mean, I already thought it was good. I just thought, I wish it was good for this kind of cutting as well, but it is. It is. Just don't try using the stock blade to do any sort of challenging deep cuts. So there we are, that's kind of a perfect score now. Now, I've heard people saying in the comments that the reason it wouldn't go to full depth is because the full depth doesn't take the track into account. I heard conflicting reports about that, but obviously that must be the case. And I'm still disappointed by that, because this is clearly, I mean, you look at the base and look at all the advertising for this saw, it is clearly marketed as a rail saw or as a track saw. And in that marketing, you look for the depth of cut, and it tells you what the depth of cut is, but there's no statement to the effect of, warning, when you use this saw in precisely the way that we are advertising and promoting it, you won't get that depth of cut. So, you know, still not great, but okay, at least I understand why the depth of cut is not what I expected. That's one area where, from what I've seen recently, is it new? I don't know. The fairly recent Milwaukee track saw, I think, has an edge because it has two gauges for measuring, one without the track and one with the track, so you know exactly what you're getting. But in any event, I have improved my assessment of the saw, and now I recommend it even more heartily than before. Just get a good blade.